Robert E. Howard's creation was immortalized when Arnold Schwarzenegger decided to take on the role of Conan the Barbarian. Conan was always imagined to be a big, burly muscle man who minded his own business and was even quite selfish. When Arnold took on the role of Conan, he owned his part. Even today, after so many decades, whenever Conan the Barbarian is brought up in conversations, most people are brought back to his iconic portrayal of the character. With the rise to fame of this titular character, it came as no surprise to people when a television series was announced. That show is Conan the Adventurer. So without further dilly-dally, and with the blessings of Crom, let's take a deep dive into this Conan and see how the series varied from the movie, shall we? But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Behind the making of Conan the Adventurer, the 1997 TV series. The Conan the Adventurer TV series was produced and released in 1997. If you notice the time period, you would know that this was right after Hercules, the Legendary Journeys, and Xena Warrior Princess rose to popularity. So effectively, we all knew that Conan the Adventurer was going to be something lighthearted and fun. Yet it would be a seemingly realistic retelling of the character that Robert E. Howard had created. But the question is, how good was this retelling going to be? If you want my honest opinion, I would say that this iteration of the character was more of a campy, corny, and comforting remake of the original character. If you've read the original work that Conan is based on, you would see that Conan was always meant to be this extremely selfish man. He grew up enslaved, and he fought for his freedom. He got the taste of cruelty firsthand, so he preferred staying away from most people because of trust issues. He had always fostered this attitude of me first. Howard's work had one thing in focus, which was how there is violence around us. But in society, true barbarism is not noticed or accepted because of the shiny veneer of the higher class. This isn't a topic that you can talk about in a light tone. This topic of what true barbarism is will always lose its meaning and gravity whenever it is presented in a lighter fashion than it should be. That's why, while a movie adaptation is PG-13, if a television series was being made out of this type of source material, every die-hard Conan and Howard fan would have wanted to see it have an R rating. Sadly, the show that they got was not like that. It was actually nothing like they had originally thought it would be. The show ran from September 22nd, 1997, and every week it gave the fans an hour of the fantasy-filled storyline which strayed quite far away from the original material. Produced by Max A. Keller and Micheline Keller, it didn't get a great rating after the first season was done being shot. One thing I have to give them credit for is that the show was shot beautifully. Yes, the production budget was low, and that was pretty evident. However, the scenic beauty of Puerto Vallarta, Mexico was evident despite the low quality of the show. It was clear that while the story of this version of Conan varied quite a bit from the original Conan of Cimmerian, it was clear that the show based Conan more on the Marvel Comics version of Conan. In the comics, Conan was seen as more of an anti-hero, and this TV series took that anti-hero and watered him down further to make him more palatable for all age groups. Through and through, the stories of the television remake focused on the fantasy elements of Conan the Barbarian and less on the violence that Conan is supposed to depict. The project was not renewed after the completion of the first season, as it got a 1.7 Nielsen rating. Despite that, Keller Entertainment, the mastermind behind this show and other shows like Tarzan the Great Adventures and Acapulco Heat, continues to market and distribute the series worldwide. The writer of this show, Steve Hayes, claimed that this series was not meant to be an adaptation of the films that came out of the 1980s or the comic book version. Instead, this was more of a separate retelling and reimagining of the character, who would be much more peaceful and kind. This was obviously done so that pretty much every age group could enjoy the show. And sure, even if you're not a fan of this retelling, you can sit and enjoy the story for the campy goodness that it is. Episode breakdown of Conan the Adventurer, 1997 TV series. The show starts with a monologue that makes it clear that this Conan is not like the other Conans that we have met until now. This one has been enslaved since his birth, and he fought his way out of that life. Now, Conan was on a mission to free the oppressed and become the king of his own land. Well, this is different. The first time we see Conan, he's in the forest trying to cook the deer that he just caught. But before he can have a bite out of it, his food is stolen by a girl. Conan gives chase, and soon enough he catches up to her. The girl is revealed to be Cimmerian. She's from a nearby village. The people of her village are starving as their crops are dying, and she wants Conan to help her. How, you may ask? Well, she wanted him to share his kill with her entire village. At first, Conan is not very sure about her, but as they exchange more banter, it's clear that sparks are flying between them. How could Conan possibly say no to such a pretty lady as Cimmerian? Eventually, Conan relented and said that he would go and get the rest of his kill from his campsite, and then both of them could go and eat the food. That's when Cimmerian revealed that she was basically tasked with distracting Conan. As Conan gave chase, some of her friends had already swiped the food from the campsite and had taken it back to the village. That made Conan a little mad, because effectively what just happened was that he was invited to a cookout where he was the one who paid for all the groceries. But then again, his rage melted away the moment Cimmerian turned up her charms. I probably shouldn't say this, but Conan is acting like a simp. Conan went with Cimmerian to the village, where they had quite a warm welcome from the village elder. But there were a few people who were disgruntled about the newcomer. But why so? To explain that, I will have to rewind a little, so stay with me. Conan is from Cimmerian, which was under the rule of Hissah Zul, a king who is also a wizard. He used his tricks and threats to keep the people of Cimmerian and neighboring states under his control. One of the biggest things that helped him assert this control was the sentient skull that he has as a servant. This skull showed up whenever he gave the bowl of water rubies, and this skull would tell him whatever he needed to know. Now, the skull gave him a premonition that a barbarian who had a sword of Crom would be the one to behead him. The barbarian that the skull described matched the description of Conan, and so Hissah Zul had been sending people in search of him. There was a group of soldiers who were under the command of Hissah Zul who had been terrorizing Tamara's village. They would drop by and take the crops, but when Conan showed up, the farmers were worried that this time the soldiers would take their lives. And they were right about that. Soon after Conan and Tamara showed up, a bunch of Hissah Zul's soldiers showed up. They were looking for a Cimmerian with a sword with rubies on the hilt. When the village elder made it clear that he had neither seen such a sword nor met a Cimmerian, the commander decided to attack them to help them jog their memory. The farmers, this time around, fought back. With Conan on their side, they were able to scare the soldiers away. Cimmerian was hurt in the midst of the fight and had lost consciousness. Conan hurried to Cimmerian, and it was very evident that these two lovebirds were very much together. She complimented his gentle touch, and he claimed that she was steel wrapped in silk. They shared a passionate kiss, and Conan spent the night in Cimmerian's hut, much to the worry of the village elder. But she brushed him aside, stating no such details about their late-night adventures. After all, a lady doesn't kiss and tell. But the peaceful morning was soon ruined as Hissah Zul's soldiers showed up again. This time, they were more violent than ever. They burnt the huts and killed people mercilessly. Some of the villagers who managed to survive the slaughter ran away on horses. Cimmerian, on the other hand, was captured by a wizard called Yara. Conan saw this and went to rescue her. However, before he could do anything, Yara put him under a spell. He put both of them in a cart with his servant Otli and decided to go away. The general of Hissah Zul showed up to stop Yara from going. He asked Yara if this was the barbarian that he had been searching for, and when Yara told him no, he had no choice but to let them go. Otli even showed him Conan's sword, and there were no rubies to be found on the hilt. Now, why did Yara do such a thing? Well, Yara, who is a wizard, wants to rule the country himself. However, in order to do so, he needed more power. The power that he sought was stored in a particular jewel in a tower called the Heart of the Elephant. Yara was sure that only Conan would be able to get the jewel, and not some petty thief. But why would Conan do his bidding? Unless Conan was doing it to protect Cimmerian. So, with such 4D chess moves, Yara set his plan in motion. He kept Cimmerian with him and sold Conan to a man who ran a place where fights to the death were common. When the effects of Yara's magic finally wore off and Conan opened his eyes, he came face to face with two men who had come to wake him up. These men were Volkar and Zebin. These two informed Conan about the dire situation that he was in. Conan found it strange that none of the fighters ever planned on joining forces and overpowering the people in charge. Volkar mentioned that it is difficult to create friendships when everyone is trying to kill everyone every day. However, Conan was not willing to accept that as an answer. He worked with all the prisoners and decided that he was going to free them because he had to go after Cimmerian. Volkar and Conan faced off against one another in the ring at the urging of the man in charge. At first, they exchanged a few blows. The fight was looking rather tense. However, right when the audience was captivated by their amazing fighting skills, Conan killed the guard of the arena. This signaled Volkar to start killing off the guards as well. And soon enough, all the fighters were free. Seeing the chaos that was unfolding in front of his eyes, Yara decided that the best call to make would be to escape with his life. So he made a hasty escape with Cimmerian, who was more than happy to see that her Conan was alive and fighting for her. Otli, Yara's servant, was mistreated by Yara often. Seeing the fighters stage a coup and topple the power dynamic made Otli also want to do the same. So he also up and left Yara for the sake of a better life, the life of a free man. He met with Conan, who was sitting with Volkar and Zebin, and told them that if Conan gave him protection until they defeated Yara, he would help him locate Cimmerian. Conan was a little skeptical of this at first, but later he decided that it would be better to have Otli as his friend, as Otli knows more about Yara and his ways. So he agreed to have him as a companion. Now, once Otli was his companion, they started out on a journey, asking Zebin and Volkar to roam the world as free men. As Conan and Otli walked through the forest, a mystical force attracted Conan towards a place. The pull of that place was so strong that he could not help but go there. This place was an old temple where there was a mummy with 6 hands and a sword. The rubies of the hilt glistened and beckoned Conan to come closer. Conan did. He came closer, and the moment he grabbed the sword, the mummy came alive. Otli hid himself as he watched Conan and the mummy fight. The fight was overwhelming. However, Conan came out victorious, cutting through the magical creature like it was made of butter. Once the fight was won, a face glowed on the sword. This was God Crom, the god of Conan. Like the original version of Conan, who was not a man of faith, this Conan was very much okay with God Crom speaking with him. Crom told him of his destiny and told him that he would have to slay Hissah Zul to fulfill his destiny. Conan was more than happy to do so, and now he was the barbarian that Hissah Zul had been warned about. As they walked to the city where Yara was sure to be, they were ambushed by thieves. The Queen of Thieves, Karella, was the one who knocked out Conan. When Conan woke up, Karella was lying next to him. Conan asked her for his clothes, which was funny to me because what clothes, bro? You're literally parading around in a loincloth. But anyway, after dodging Karella's attempt at assaulting him, Conan made it clear to her that he was not interested in her because he had eyes for only Cimmerian. Karella was not too happy about it. She had hoped that Conan would fall in love with her and choose her even though they had known each other for only a few minutes. But then again, Conan fell in love with Cimmerian in a short time, so I can't really blame her. When all of her charms do not work, Karella decides to be mean. She said that she couldn't let Conan leave the place alive, as now he knew the secret lair of the Queen of Thieves. However, Conan took advantage of the feelings that she had for him and told her that he would keep it secret if she would just let him go. He effectively charmed his way out of it, and it worked. Karella let him go. After days of grueling journey, Conan was finally in Yara's castle. He climbed through the window, which Otli pointed out, and what do you know? Cimmerian was there. The lovers embraced and shared kisses, completely drowning in each other. This gives Yara the opportunity to sneak up on the lovers and trap Cimmerian in the mirror. He told Conan that he would only free Cimmerian if Conan would get him the heart of the elephant. Conan agreed to do the task only if Yara would let Cimmerian out of the mirror. Yara relented, but left Cimmerian in a haze. Seeing Cimmerian out of the mirror gave Conan enough peace of mind to go to the tower where the fabled heart of the elephant lay. But the moment he entered, he was surprised by the presence of a friend. Karella was there. The tower had several gems, and Karella wanted all of them. After all, she is the Queen of Thieves. Conan told her that she could have whatever gems she wanted as long as she let him have the heart of the elephant. Karella didn't like the proposition one bit because she came to the place hoping to go home with the heart of the elephant herself. But when Conan pleaded, saying it was for Cimmerian, she relented begrudgingly. Together, Karella, Otli, and Conan made their way up the tower. They fought with the soldiers who were placed as guards and reached the front of the door from which no thieves ever returned. The door was covered in precious stones, which kept Karella busy enough for Conan to enter the room hassle-free. The room was covered in jewels, but it was clear that danger was lurking in the corner of the room. That danger was a giant spider. The spider attacked Conan, but Conan's magical sword was far stronger than the beast. Conan cut his way through the spider and went to the next chamber, where there was an elephant, and in front of that elephant was a spherical diamond, which was the one he needed to get. Right before Conan could get his hand on the diamond, the elephant started talking. This elephant was Yagosha. He was a wizard like Yara, but far stronger. Yara, blinded by his jealousy, decided to turn Yagosha into this elephant-like creature and turned his wife into the spider that Conan had to kill. Conan apologized when he learned about the person he had just killed, but Yagosha told him not to feel guilty. Yagosha knew that the one to kill his wife would be the one to save him from this condition. Despite Conan's protests, when Yagosha kept pleading, Conan couldn't refuse him. Conan killed Yagosha with a heavy heart and covered the diamond with Yagosha's blood before showing up with it to Yara. Yara changed his color really quickly when he got the gem in his hand. But what he didn't know was that Yagosha had expected him to behave this way. So in his dying breath, Yagosha cursed the diamond that had his entire power to kill off Yara after allowing him to use the powers for only one enchantment. When Conan asked Yara about Cimmerian, Yara revealed that Cimmerian was stabbed in the lower levels of his castle, enraging Conan. When Conan attacked him, Yara used Yagosha's powers to protect him. This led to his inevitable death, as Conan rushed to be with Cimmerian. He learned from Cimmerian that the man who killed her was none other than the general who had destroyed her village. Conan knew exactly who she was talking about, and swore to take revenge. After he buried her, he met with Volkar and Zebin, who were traveling in the same direction as the villagers from Cimmerian's village. Seeing the people who loved Cimmerian, Conan decided that he would charge at the general as soon as possible. So the moment the opportunity arose, Conan attacked the general who had killed Cimmerian with the farmers. Conan dominated the entire fight and ended up killing the general in cold blood to avenge his girl. But he knew better. His journey of revenge was not going to end with the killing of the general. It would only end when he managed to kill Hissah Zul himself. So, with that in mind, Conan went on his journey with his very own ragtag team of adventurers, consisting of Volkar, Zebin, and Otli. He also met with the capoeira fighter Bayu, who also became one of his crucial teammates. Karella showed up on and off throughout his journey, hoping to woo Conan. But somehow she always seemed to lose the battle, as someone else would always have Conan's eyes. Red Sonja happens to be one of the many women who captured Conan's heart, even if it's just for a moment. When Conan was marching to beat Hissah Zul, he noticed a few people escaping with a boy in a cart. He gave chase with his friends, and the cart was imbalanced and almost fell into the ravine next to the forest they were passing through. Conan decided that he would help the cart owners by pulling it away from the edge. But while he did so, the people from the cart escaped, setting the cart on fire. Red Sonja, who was following that cart, showed up and berated Conan a bit. That cart had Lutai, a wizard who had found the secret of youth. His captors were Hartons, who had killed the family of Red Sonja. The Hartons were working under the command of King Vog, who wanted to be young again. So he demanded them to bring Lutai and use him to become youthful. When Conan and Red Sonja showed up in his kingdom, King Vog was looking for a sacrifice that he could use to pressure Lutai into doing his bidding. Using that as an opportunity, Red Sonja got into the castle. She pretended to be the woman who had spoken against the king and went in as a prisoner. Lutai, seeing Red Sonja, decided to make a potion for the king. On the other hand, Conan and his friends staged a coup with the villagers, planning to overthrow the rule of the king once Lutai had done his share of the work. The potion that Lutai made turned an old dog into a young puppy in a fraction of a second. Seeing the magic work in front of his eyes, King Vogue was sure that this was everything he could have asked for. So he took a sip of the potion, and he too was turned into a young dog. Seeing his king betrayed, the loyal general of King Vogue tried to attack the wizard. That is when Red Sonja jumped in to protect him. On the other hand, Conan and his friends set fire to the castle grounds, leading to the guards opening the castle gate. That's when the villagers decided to attack the guards. In the midst of this chaos, Conan went upstairs, where he knew he would find Red Sonja and join in on the fight. The fight between him and the general was brutal, but eventually he came out victorious. Lutai and Red Sonja parted ways from Conan, but Lutai mentioned that fate was not done with the two of them, as it was clear that they both had captured each other's hearts. But despite all of that, at the end of the day, Conan's goal was not to settle down. His goal was to kill Hissah Zul. Finally, after several days of journeying, Conan managed to come near Hissah Zul's castle. Hissah Zul sent his men after him, and understandably, the fight was brutal. However, suddenly, the fight stopped when the sky became dark in color. The way the sky changed color was not natural at all, and Conan knew. This chased the soldiers away, and soon after, 3 people showed up. They were the people behind the change in the sky. They were King Garo of Shem, Emperor Norbu of the Black Kingdom, and King Penor, the second of Ru'el. All 3 of these kings were wizards like Hissah Zul. They had heard about Conan and his adventures, and they knew that if they stayed on Hissah Zul's side, they would end up being the losers when Hissah Zul was ultimately defeated. So instead of staying on his side, they decided that if they helped Conan with defeating the king, then Conan would favor them, which would in turn help them. Their plan was certainly something. They also chose one of Conan's companions, each hoping that they would talk to Conan and make sure Conan favored them after he inevitably killed Hissah Zul. Otli, Zebin, and Bayu, all 3 of them made their separate offers for the kings, but none were swayed by their words. They stayed loyal to their friend and only talked to the emperors whenever they needed to ask for help. Eventually, all of them showed up in front of Hissah Zul's castle. There, the wizards used their power to counteract Hissah Zul's magic. Once they had depleted Hissah Zul's magic, they teleported Conan into Hissah Zul's chamber, where he swiftly beheaded the emperor. This marked a clear win, and the fall of Hissah Zul's empire was completed. Conan was now the king, and it was clear that all 3 of the kings wanted to be his favorite. However, Conan knew better. He told them that he favored all 3 of them equally, and that they should hurry and return back to their cities, as Karella, the Queen of Thieves, had gone on her own adventure. It's no secret that if she steps into a city, she wipes the entire city clean, so it would be ideal if all of them went home as soon as possible. Fearing losing their precious treasures, all 3 wizards went back to their kingdoms, and Conan was left manning his new kingdom in his own way. Here, everyone was free. The system was just, and no one was oppressing the weaker people anymore. The destiny for Conan had finally been fulfilled, and he had everything that he was meant to have, except a queen in his arms. It was clear that this particular area of the show, regarding Conan's love life, was left open-ended to be resolved in the next season. But alas, the next season never happened, and we missed out on knowing who Conan ends up choosing between Karella and Red Sonja, or if Tamira makes a return with a resurrection. That would have been interesting to watch.
Congratulations, Master. I am still with you.
The main characters of this show. The main character of this show is Conan. Ralf Moeller played this character with a gentleness that was not present in Howard's works. This Conan is much more open to romance, much more optimistic, and willing to work with people. Sure, he had trust issues, but still, they do not make it extremely hard for him to believe others. This Conan is more than happy to make friends. He is also somehow a ladies' man, because pretty much any woman who is in his vicinity finds themselves drooling over him. If I had to guess, it would be because of Ralf Moeller's body. Personally, I'm a big Otli fan. The charming and knowledgeable companion was played by the lovely Danny Woodburn. He may be small in size, but that never affected the depth of his knowledge about everything that was relevant. Otli might seem like a treacherous guy as he quickly changed sides. However, as we spend more and more time with him, it becomes extremely clear that this man is good at heart. He does not mean any harm to anyone. He just wanted to be treated with respect and get affection and praise. We also see how brutally loyal he is to whoever has his affections. In the episode where Red Sonja was introduced, Otli killed the man who killed the girl girl who was affectionate towards him. Even though he was not showing his grief the way Conan always showed his grief, Otli's behavior was something that I could support despite the brutal nature of it. Other than Otli in his group, Conan had Zebin, Bayu, and Volkar. These three were fighters who helped Conan out in ways that Otli could not. These characters were played by Robert McRae, TJ Storm, and Andrew Craig, respectively. Each of these actors embodied their role and the way they acted, even with their small gestures. For example, Zebin is mute, and so whenever he wanted to call out to someone, he was reminded of his disability, and he would touch his throat. This gesture is such a subtle detail, but it makes his character so much more believable. Jeremy Kemp played the role of the villainous ruler Hissah Zul, and boy oh boy, I can see why people hated him. Hissah Zul is cruel. He's conniving, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that he gets whatever he wants. He's willing to position his last remaining general, who later turns out to be his son, just because he is unwilling to accept defeat at the hands of the Barbarian. Arthur Burghardt voiced the sentient skull that informed Hissah Zul about the fights and how many battles he was losing. He was also the one to tell Hissah Zul about the true identity of his last remaining general after Hissah Zul had poisoned him. What shocked me was how casually Hissah Zul moved on from that piece of information. It was like it didn't matter to him in the slightest that he ended up murdering his son. It was wild. Lastly, I have to mention Karella. Since she came on the screen, Karella had made her intentions clear. She wanted some of that Barbarian, and she was not going to take no for an answer. Other than wanting Conan, Karella is a strong woman who is ruling her very own group of thieves. That's why she goes by the moniker Queen of Thieves. Karella often shows why she has the moniker, because if you look away for even a second, that would be enough for her to do her thing. Ali Dunn did phenomenal work as the Queen of the Thieves, and while she might not have stolen a lot of gems throughout the series, she for sure stole my heart. Reasons that make Conan the Adventurer, the 1997 TV series, a must-watch. Now, I know that I've said how this series has deviated from the original work a lot, but I have to give the series props where it deserves. Despite the low production cost, which was obvious, the casting was done rather nicely. Ralf Moeller works extremely well as Conan, owing to his 6'6" height. His previous bodybuilding career also played a role in making him look like an absolute powerhouse with such chiseled features. Karella was like a bit of spice who showed up every now and then and made the whole situation more entertaining. I loved her presence in the story. Zebin, Otli, Volkar, and Bayu, all four of them have their own charm. Seeing Zebin and Volkar work together to kick some soldiers' ass was extremely satisfying, almost as satisfying as seeing Otli outwit people. As a television series, this show is perfect as a comfort series. If you enjoy a lot of fantasy elements with the corniness of the 90s shows, then I would definitely suggest this.
It's time for the wizard.
Marvelous verdict. Conan the Adventurer may not have been as iconic as the Conan from the movies. However, this version has a place in my heart for his gentle touch, kind heart, and a fresh interpretation of his character as a whole. I enjoyed the show quite a bit, even though as a Howard fan myself, I was a bit disgruntled at first. The simplicity of the nature of this show has quite a charm, and I think a lot of you would find the show just as enjoyable, if not comforting, to a great extent. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.